Hello everybody. So, what can you do in 2 hours? You can go for a nice bike ride like this. You could bake a delicious loaf of bread like this. Oh, lovely. Or you could score an entire feature film. It's something I did last year. It's a wonderful film. It's called Malcolm is a Little Unwell. Malcolm is a Little Unwell is a really incredible story. Malcolm Brabant is an old friend of mine from when I used to be a television reporter. He went on to be an amazing award-winning international journalist working in all kinds of war zones all over the world. Then a few years ago, he had a routine yellow fever injection and got incredibly sick off the back of it. And this triggered a spiral into the most devastating mental illness. And because he's a television journalist out there in the field, all this is filmed. So this documentary follows his descent basically into psychosis and obviously out the other side. So it's a story which does have, an encouraging, uplifting ending, but it is pretty harrowing stuff. Now, Malcolm comes to me and says, look, there's this one sequence in the film which we can't quite get the music right, and would you possibly write me a bit of music? I said, of course, I'd love to. So the sequence in question is it's looking back midway through the film, but they're looking back at old wedding photographs. They're looking back at times when things were really good. So if you look at the sequence, which is just unfolding here, you say to yourself, oh, okay. If you're going to score what you're seeing on the screen, you're seeing two people in love getting married. So you're scoring something which is very romantic, but you can't do that because the context of this is that this is looking back from where they are now in this terribly, terribly difficult and painful time, looking back to the days of happiness. So you've got to write a score which has to suggest quite a lot of things at the same time. And the context of this sequence is vital. If you just scored what you were saying, you'd miss it, I think. So I spent some time. I was very lucky, actually, because what I think was quite a good idea came to me quite quickly. But what I knew I had to try and do was something which implied both. It did that slightly Michael Giacchino thing of implying a sort of sense of happiness, but with regret. But equally, there needed to be some sort of sense of sort of resolve and purpose and optimism about it, so that it wasn't just sad and it wasn't just uplifting. It was half and half, but with a sense. Anyway, what I started over here on my noble piano with my cheery light up zebras, and the basic little tune I came up with was. Okay, let me show you from here. Now, why I quite like this is you can put all kinds of harmony underneath it and change the thing around almost entirely. So that's going from an A minor to a D minor. Then when I come back down with the scale, I'm changing the D minor to a D major, and it becomes a dominant seventh because that note is some C in the chord of D major. Then dropping down to an F major. So I'm mixing modes all the way through. And you can do all kinds of things with this little tune. So I wrote this sequence, which is the one we've just been having a look at. And actually, I then thought, I really like this little idea, and I'd really like to sort of do something else with it. So I literally just sat at the piano and started playing, and I just played in a whole load of variations on this little theme, and it worked out. Let's see, why can't we hear this? Oh, because I got it turned. So I was literally recording it onto the Zoom recorder. So this is where the scoring a film in 2 hours bit comes. Look, I just sit down and I recorded whatever that is, 10 minutes of material, maybe more, literally just all kinds of stuff. Sometimes so you can just do that and imply the theme. The thing about feature documentaries is if they're going to step up and feel cinematic, they need something which helps them feel cohesive, because otherwise it's a 90-minute television documentary, and a television documentary is a different beast. And I didn't know if they didn't ask me to do it. I just thought, I'll just do it. So I turned off the click. I just recorded all these little pieces in, and so you can hear the spirit of the theme in there with a little. This is just literally improvised in. So then, having done that for 15, 20 minutes, I then just literally dropped in bits and pieces of samples where I felt it was appropriate or where it might help. So for example, if we go up here, don't look at the picture. So it wasn't written to picture. It's a bit of Albion 5 actually this is. And then there's other bits which feel more optimistic. But again, it's all really quite simple and restrained. But even where I'm not using the theme, there's something about the sound is the sound of the film. With most documentary, you've got to be right. You know, the top line in a documentary is whoever that is doing the narration or whoever is speaking. And I literally did that. And then I mixed out just the piano. Then I mixed out all the other bits except the piano. So I don't know how long this actually turned out to be. What is it? But then I just gave it to them, and they'd already heard the basic idea. And so, oh, that's really good. I really like that. You know, that's sort of really nice, and all the rest of it, which is very encouraging. So 10:33, so 10. Yeah. So I did 15 minutes of improvisation. So the full mix is like 15 minutes. Then there's just piano, which is another 15, and then there's just the samples, which is another 15. So in 2 hours, I came up with like 45 minutes of music by mixing it around different ways. I chopped them up into little cues and gave it to them. And they're very good filmmakers. And the reason that they realised that this particular sequence, which we started with, needed help was because in some respects it's the fulcrum around which the whole film sort of revolves. It's got exactly those ideas of bittersweet memory and optimism and determination to make it right in the future, and you've got to somehow, because when I managed to get that right, then that piece of music actually was the spirit of what needed to go elsewhere in the film. So they gave them the music, and then they could put it, various other places in the film, which just helped to bring the thing together. The film itself is a wonderful film, and I would look underneath this video, and there's a link to where you can go and see the whole film. Also, I've got a link there for all kinds of other things, including some of the music from the film, so you can download and have a listen to it. And obviously, there's all the normal links to things like our free guide to how to write film music and all those kind of things. So there's lots of stuff there for you to download. And of course, if you want to be informed when we do videos like this, in all their joy and excitement, then subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and you'll just get a notification saying, hey, Guy's done another one. Okay, so the way I would characterize this is, and this is quite a common way of producing quite a large amount of music in a short space of time. If you write, and I've done television jobs like this, where I write a piece of music and they put it into the edit and they say, oh, can we have another bit? And if you remix it a number of different ways and you work in a very kind of improvisational sort of way, you can produce stuff really quickly. To be honest, I could have spent a long time coming up with the theme, but I was really lucky. It just sort of gelled. I wasn't lucky. The film was really good. The film was good, and so it made it much easier for me to jump in and do my thing. So it isn't just piano and strings, which is a bit what you'd expect. I've got this array umbira. Hang on. It's which is from, is it Sonic Couture? It's a lovely sound. And if you just sit it quietly under things, it just adds a little point of difference sometimes. You hear that? I'm using Adagiato dynamic bowings with mutes, which does this wonderful. Thank you, trolls. What else have I got going on here? There's a little bit of solo cello. I can't remember what solo cello I'm using. It's not linked up at the moment anyway. But I think probably it's the small strings from Spitfire, which is the one I like quite a lot. What else have I got going? Oh, there's a little bit with some Bansuri flute, which this one here. But it's quite still, and you can see, it's all designed to go underneath things, but what it's doing, it's the harmony that is most, as much as the thematic stuff, it's the harmony which is helping tell the story. This way of working, where you write the music first, is increasingly common, and a lot of filmmakers really like it, because filmmakers, the current generation, have grown up with, Avid and Final Cut, and they're just used to having music to cut to all the time, and so you end up with this really interesting dialogue going on between you and the filmmaker, where they say, give me a bit of music for this particular idea, and you do something, and they go, great, we put that somewhere else, it works even better somewhere else. So it helps with this distance between the picture and what's going on in the music. So I was sort of moving with this piece. I had a sort of slightly Carter Burwell thing going on in my mind, I suppose, because he's absolute master of implying these mixed emotions, and also he's a real he's very careful not to score exactly what you see on the screen, that there's always this really interesting dynamic tension between what the music's saying and what the picture's saying, that actually almost all the best composers now really sort of find themselves in that space, and it's where the music does its work. Anyway, I really enjoyed doing this film. I would heartily encourage you to go and check out the whole movie. It's called Malcolm is a Little Unwell, and it's produced by Journeyman Films, and there's a link underneath there. So look, I hope you've enjoyed this little deconstruction. We'll be back with more stuff very soon. Please remember to subscribe and leave a comment underneath. I try my level best to answer everybody's questions, so if there's things you want to know, let me know. But for the time being, from me, farewell.